Uchiha's Rebellion, The Rise of Ruohuo. Like, share, and subscribe. Episode 31. Inter Chakra. Once upon a time, in the Warring States period, before Konoha was established, fire style was once synonymous with Uchiha. Uchiha, who possesses the blood succession limit Sharingan, turns many enemies into ashes with her powerful fire style on the battlefield. In the huge ninja world, only the Senju clan can contend with it. Later, Uchiha and Senju put aside their prejudices and established Konoha together. The ninja world ushered in a new ninja village system, and ninjas also ushered in a new living environment. As time goes by, Konoha has experienced 2 ninja wars, and the 3rd ninja war just started not long ago. The alternation of old and new, ancient, powerful, Konoha's wealthy family, these are still Uchiha's labels. But Uchiha, who has moved to Konoha several times, has suddenly become the role of Konoha's guard. And to this day, when the fire dragon hovered over the examination room, when the Uchiha boy raised his fingers, he seemed to be hesitating whether to burn his opponent to death. How can only Hyuga Ayakawa feel the fear that our ancestors had towards the Uchiha clan that sleeps deep in their souls? Fire style, can it still be used like this? An Akamichi tribesman finally couldn't restrain his inner shock, and even forgot about the potato chips in his hand. His voice trembled. Is this Uchiha? Fugaku did not express any words of shock and seemed calm, but Makoto, whose fingers were intertwined with him next to him, could feel her husband's excitement the most. He gently stroked his belly and said, "My child, you have a very powerful big brother." Orochimaru, wearing a hat, 3rd generation, who had witnessed Ruohuo's move in a crystal ball, took a puff of cigarette, but his old face did not show much joy. No one knows what the old man is thinking, including Orochimaru, who is closest to him. In the second Chunin assessment, this kid once used this technique to circle around the forest of death and ignited a large forest with fire style. I had no choice but to stop the assessment. That fire, it took the rescue team a full 3 hours to extinguish it. I've heard about it, sensei. Orochimaru put a serious tone on his tone. This is my negligence. I still underestimated this child's talent. His current strength has far exceeded the limit that Chunin can withstand. I should have expected it. Orochimaru took the responsibility on himself. But how can the 3rd generation project pursue it? Not to mention that Uchiha has already borne Konoha's losses this time, and 3rd generation's current purpose is not to pursue accountability. Another talented Uchiha. Danzo's worries are not unreasonable, but he is still more inclined to follow the teacher's approach. Keep this child with you from now on, Orochimaru, don't forget my instructions to you. Orochimaru smiled slightly. I understand, sensei. The key to reconciliation between Uchiha and Konoha? Orochimaru has not forgotten this child's dream that day. Become the clan leader, protect Konoha, go to the ninja world, and become bigger and stronger. In Orochimaru's opinion, the teacher's worries are undoubtedly unnecessary. The kid hasn't been exposed to those things yet. The top management of Konoha only needs to give up some prejudices, so why do they need any bridges? In a dark corner, Danzo stared at the figure coldly. The sun could not shine on the old man, and no one could see his expression clearly. Sir Elder, the bug team has arrived and intercepted White Fang's emergency call for help. A Genin appeared, bent down, and whispered the report. Inform the bug squad to leave the battlefield, remain silent, and prepare to carry out the strangulation mission against Uchiha. Danzo still stared at the young man above the examination room and continued, give the information about Uchiha Wakaki to those rats hiding in Konoha and ensure that they can be sent back to their respective villages. If the plan fails, I will also ensure that this brat will die in attacks from other ninja villages. Yes. The root ninja disappeared. Danzo's fingers tapped the armrest rhythmically. Although he had prepared a lot in advance, he still felt that such an action was not safe. The talent of that Uchiha kid is clearly evident. Danzo was born in an era guarded by the 1st generation. In that era, there was still the remaining power of Shura in the ninja world. Although I don't know if this Uchiha kid is qualified to be compared with Uchiha Madara. But Danzo didn't want to, and didn't dare to let time verify. What if this brat could become the 2nd Uchiha Madara? In Konoha right now, there is no 2nd 1st generation that can compete with it. It would be best if Orochimaru is willing to cooperate. Danzo closed his eyes and thought about the possibility of this matter. According to his understanding of monkeys, it is absolutely impossible for the position of 4th Hokage to be passed on to Orochimaru. Even if Tsunade has failed to recover since the 2nd ninja war and Jiraiya has no intention of succeeding the Hokage, once a more suitable candidate is available, the monkey will not consider Orochimaru. This guy is too ambitious. But if this ambition can be used, maybe. Hyuga Qingchuan ultimately failed to avenge his beloved brother. The examiner announced the winner. But Hyuga Qingchuan is indeed the most powerful among these candidates. After that, Ruohuo had a bye in the semi-finals. Then I met an opponent who gave up on his own initiative and entered the finals without even moving his butt. But just as he was getting ready to go through another process, his final opponent was too exhausted in the semifinals. Chakra and physical strength were both exhausted, so he gave up the decisive battle. Ruohuo won the first place in this way without even breaking a sweat and felt lonely participating. At this point, the Chunin assessment is declared over. The overall time of this assessment will be shorter. If there are no urgent changes to the rules and several candidates are left in other ways, it can actually be shorter. But the scene of Ruokata standing on a fire dragon and appearing in the sky above the examination room was passed down by the Konoha ninjas in the audience. We can't talk about it with gusto, but they all expressed their admiration for the emergence of such a genius in Uchiha. Third generation finally announced a total of 4 people who have been promoted to Chunin. There is Ruohuo, and there are 2 civilian ninjas who performed well in the semifinals. And the last one turned out to be Wakahuo's opponent in the first round, Hyuga Ayakawa. Well, I am proud enough to be able to hold on 2 ninjutsu in the hands of Ruohuo. As for what Hyuga Qingchuan himself would think, Ruohuo didn't bother to guess because he had more important things to do now. Ding, family mission, be promoted to Konoha Chunin. Square root, get B-level family reward, Indra Chakra. Indra Chakra, your chakra will be blessed by Indra, the ancestor of ninjutsu, and gain the power of reincarnation, In. Power of samsara, In. Your spiritual energy is greatly improved. When you obtain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and power of samsara yang, you can obtain the Eye of 6 Paths. You have obtained the B-level main skill slot *1. The personal attributes interface has been unlocked. Click to view. Your Sharingan has evolved into a 3 Megatama Sharingan. Ruohuo finished digesting the information. Did something terrible happen? Episode 32. I'm thinking about challenging Chief Fugaku. After receiving the vest, Ruohuo sat on a bench in the park not far from the Hokage building and read the system prompts again. Is it really Indra Chakra? Take another look and feel it. I feel a lot more energetic. Is this Indra Chakra? Feeling it carefully again, Ruohuo's expression gradually became weird. Indra Chakra, that's it? Indeed, except for the initial feeling, which was like mustard rushing to my head, nothing really seemed to have changed. Shouldn't I just give you a reincarnation eye synthesis coupon? This is too. Ruohuo paused and suddenly realized, was he too greedy? Although it is not an immediate combat power reward, such late-stage props are often hard to come by. Okay, at least the reincarnation eye is in place. The battery life problem of the 3 Magatama Sharingan should be okay. Ruohuo still found the second hidden reward. As mental attributes improve, Sharingan will last longer. Ruohuo glanced at the follow-up rewards for other levels of tasks. B-level main skill slot. Ruohuo frowned, but still didn't rush to use it. Although he does have several powerful B-level mutant ninjutsu, according to Ruohuo's eyes, there is actually a more suitable one. I just haven't learned it yet. Now he is also a 3 Magatama Uchiha, and his copy attributes are full. It is not too late to wait any longer. Let's look at the attributes first. If you click on the personal attribute bar, personal attributes, 3, personal buff is not included, physique, 3, strength C, speed C-, recovery C, overall rating C, genin, spirit, 4, I power S, genjutsu B+, genjutsu resistance B, recovery B, overall rating A+, elite jonin, ninjutsu, 4, chakra reserve C+, chakra control A, chakra quality A, fire, saturation 100%. In, saturation 100%, seal B, overall rating A, jonin, overall rating, A-, special jonin, it's just special jonin, that's better than Kakashi and Itachi. Ruohuo raised his eyebrows. The evaluation of the system is generally reasonable. But if the little Vulcan buff is included, it's not a concept. Although his attributes are not improved, the minimum 90% normal consumption saving throw is equivalent to 10 times the amount of chakra he has obtained. Coupled with the 200% increase in power, if he saves more chakra, it will be doubled again. This is 100 times better. A guest appearance as Senju is not a problem at all. At least it needs to have an A+ rating, right? If you add it all together, you'll have, well, your physique is still weak. Physical attributes, limited by age, are indeed a bit weak. I don't know how Uchiha Madara practiced in those days. Chakra seemed to be inexhaustible, and Nine Tails, holding the bar, was at odds with Hashirama. They fought for several days and nights, but in the end they only lost one move. How about not saying that Hashirama and Madara are true love? If Madara goes all out and uses Danzo style to challenge Izanagi, winning or losing, is really not certain. Congratulations, Lord Ruohuo. Orochimaru's voice suddenly appeared next to Wakaki. Ruohuo thought like a god, turned his head and glanced at Orochimaru, his eyes were completely unmoved. I looked at the mental attributes again. The Genjutsu ability, which has not yet been fully developed, has come to be plus due to the 3 Magatama Sharingan. Hello, teacher. Ruohuo responded and continued to think about things. Now that the 3 Magatama are in hand, as long as Umbu/Root is added, Mangekyo is not far away. Unlocking the personal attribute template allowed Ruohuo to roughly understand the system's calculation method. The current overall level of the Uchiha clan is A. It could be an A or it could be an A+. It doesn't matter, he will take action. If Hashirama cells plus curse seal are used, he really won't be afraid. The key research and development of Hashirama cells and curse seals had to be entrusted to Orochimaru. And now Orochimaru. Come on, even if Orochimaru awakens on the spot, it will take at least 3 to 5 years to complete his research. So Ruohuo believes that we still have to start from the most basic. Let Uchiha develop his own strength, not only to restore his status during the Warring States period, but at least to restore the state at that time. You can only show off, but you don't have the strength to show off? At least he couldn't be killed by Obito and Itachi, right? Waiting for the end of the Third Ninja War, Fugaku opens his eyes and adds the triple pair of Mangekyo from the 3 CBD brothers. Once the family's strength reaches S level, it should be stable. This requires a certain say within the family. What are you thinking about? Wakahuo-kun. Seeing that Wakahuo fell silent again, Orochimaru asked curiously. Ruohuo glanced at Orochimaru and pursed his lips. I was thinking about challenging the Fugaku clan leader. Ruohuo said seriously and showed his 3 Magatama. I have obtained Chunin's Will of Fire, and it's time to have a showdown with Chief Fugaku. Indeed so. I still remember that Wakeo-kun wanted to become a Chunin in order to challenge Fugaku-kun and become the clan leader, right? Orochimaru was only slightly shocked, then smiled slightly and regained his composure. After 2 months of contact, he has seen so many things in his students that he never dared to imagine before. 3 Magatama Sharingan. Pretty normal, isn't it? As for Orochimaru's calmness, Wakahara is also very calm. I prepared teacher, I'll go when Obito is out of school, do you want to cheer for me? Speaking of Obito and Shursui. Chunin forgot to call these 2 little fans during the assessment, and felt that the cheers were missing. But I was in a hurry today. First I attended the funeral with Orochimaru, then turned around and went to the examination room. I didn't have time to call them. Then I'll make up for it later when I challenge Fugaku. He definitely won't lose anyway, after all, he can fly. But as to whether we can win. Hard to say. He is not afraid of chakra reserves. With the blessing of Little Fire God, he only uses fire style, so he is not afraid of consumption. But otherwise. Genjutsu, taijutsu, and many practical techniques. It doesn't matter, he can fly anyway. He has air control and is so arrogant. When Conan faced Jiraiya, he could fight and run away whenever he wanted, that's the reason. Ruohuo-kun, if you don't mind, you might as well listen to the teacher's advice. Orochimaru smiled gently, giving Ruohuo the feeling that he was now the second pillar. Teacher, please speak. Ruohuo was not afraid at all. If that doesn't work, you can challenge Sannin. He can fly anyway. The initiative lies with you, Lord Ruohuo. Orochimaru smiled and said, you can choose to challenge the clan leader at any time, and there is no need to rush. After all, Chief Fugaku is the one who possesses Jonin's Will of Fire. His Will of Fire is no weaker than that of Lord Wakaho. So the teacher suggested that Wakahara-kun might as well accumulate some more and wait until he obtains Jonin's Will of Fire before challenging him? Ruohuo fell silent. While secretly marking Orochimaru awakening level 30% in his mind, he suddenly remembered a certain old otaku. Let's just say, transplantation of wood-style cells is not without success. If Uchiha Madara's body is given to Orochimaru for study, this guy should be able to figure out the direction quickly, right? Take another 10,000 steps back. If only I could gain control of White Zetsu. So the teacher wants to help me submit my application for the Jonin assessment? Ruohuo asked. Just a suggestion, Lord Ruohuo. Orochimaru smiled and took out a scroll. Becoming a Jonin is not that simple. It requires a lot of mission experience. But the Will of Fire that can be obtained by becoming a Jonin is exactly what Wakaka-kun needs, isn't it? Ruohuo took the scroll. I opened it and took a look, it was a B-level rescue mission. Class B, that's not impossible. Episode 33, notify the Fugaku clan leader and ask him to prepare and meet the challenge in the best condition, so by completing this mission, I can obtain Jonin's Will of Fire? Ruohuo held the scroll and asked again. I'm not in a rush to be the clan leader or anything like that. Although the leader of the Uchiha clan is not as good as the Hokage, at 7 years old, it is too abstract. Gaara next door Kazekage is still in his teens. In contrast, he was now more curious about Orochimaru's purpose. That's not true. Orochimaru shook his head. Becoming a Jonin is more demanding than passing the Chunin exam. In addition to the ability to independently complete high-risk tasks, the requirements for all aspects are very high. One mission is definitely not enough, but this mission will be the starting point for Wakahokuin to become Jonin. That's it. Ruohuo nodded thoughtfully, then stood up and made a seal. Then let's set off quickly, teacher. Orochimaru was a little surprised now. Based on what he had learned about the child during this period, he had thought that Ruohuo would not be so easy to persuade. After all, Ruohuo has always been determined to challenge Fugaku and become the clan leader. He glanced vaguely in the direction of the Hokage building. Orochimaru was about to say something when he saw Wakahuo's shadow clone appear and said with Wakahuo's thoughts for a second, "I'm going to inform my grandma and brother." "Do you want to issue a declaration of war to Chief Fugaku first?" "Of course." Ruohuo said seriously, "Rescuing people is a big deal. Wait until I complete the task first and then challenge the Fugaku clan leader when I come back." Shadow Clone nodded, "Okay, then I will let Chief Fugaku prepare and practice hard, so that he can strive to be in the best condition to welcome you." Shadow Clone ran away expressionlessly. Wakahui looked at Orochimaru, "Every minute and every second of the rescue time is precious, so let's set off as soon as possible, teacher." Orochimaru hesitated for a moment, but still smiled and agreed, "Okay." In the crystal ball, Orochimaru and Wakahui had already started heading towards the exit of the village. Only then did third generation look at the three elders. You have also seen that Orochimaru did not give any hints throughout the whole process, but this child still chose to set out for the rescue as soon as he received the mission. I said. Although Ruohuo is still young, his will of fire is very strong. Third generation slowly loaded the pipe with tobacco leaves, the chakra condensed into a flame on his fingertips, lit it, and took a beautiful sip. But this kid's interpretation of the will of fire seems unusual, right? Koharu frowned and said, "What Chunin Jonin? That sounds too ridiculous." "Because I didn't understand it, I thought it was ridiculous. This is the normal thinking of a superior person." Mito Kodoyan understood, maybe it's a tacit understanding between Orochimaru and this child? Just like when a child completes a goal, the parents give rewards or something. I have also taught the children at home in this way. Uchiha Wakaki is too young after all, so it is quite normal for Orochimaru to do this. After going to bed, Koharu frowned, then will Orochimaru use this tacit understanding to hint at Uchiha Wakaki? Koharu. Third generation knocked on the table lightly and interrupted, "You are a little worried." After saying that, he felt a little weird again and looked at Danzo. Danzo didn't say a word today. He squinted his eyes slightly and closed his eyes to rest since he entered the office. He was too quiet. Sensing the third generation's gaze, Danzo half opened his eyes and said coldly, "My attitude has not changed from the beginning. No member of the Uchiha clan is qualified to be promoted to Chunin, especially this kid who cheated to pass the test. He also severely damaged the examination room during the second examination, almost causing harm to Konoha. Uchiha like this, my suggestion is to take back Chunin's qualifications, at least let him return to the Konoha security department, and keep him under surveillance to prevent." "That's enough, Danzo." Third generation interrupted with a slightly raised voice, "You're too extreme. This is my way of doing things, and this is also the original intention of establishing the route." Danzo stood up directly and looked at the third generation with cold eyes, "Monkey. Uchiha is different from Senju, you will regret it sooner or later." Orochimaru and Wakahui set off directly, but stopped suddenly shortly after leaving Konoha. Three masked ninjas caught up. "Lord Orochimaru, these are the supplies you just requested." A ninja presented a spacetime scroll with both hands. "Thank you for your hard work. Let's go back first. We don't need too many people for this mission." "Yes." Orochimaru was still attentive and used his clone to inform his subordinates when they set off to deliver equipment. This way you don't waste time and you don't have to go to the battlefield barefoot. The time and space scrolls are full of ninja tools, long swords, kunai shurikens, and flashing smoke detonators. There are also some soldiers' grain pills and plums, used for promoting body fluids, wrapped in wax paper. They are of good quality and large in quantity. They are the best choice for traveling as a monk and killing people. The quantity is neither too much nor too little, enough for 2 people. No matter what the task is, preparation is very important, Lord Ruohuo. Orochimaru distributed equipment to Wakahui while teaching, as you said, every minute and every second of rescue time is precious, but if the mission fails due to insufficient preparation, then the time gained will be in vain. I understand, teacher. If Hui keeps putting things into his ninja bag, he will most likely not need them, but he can sell them for money. He now has an elder and a younger child at home, and in the future, whether he wants to change houses, marry a wife and have children, or lead his tribe to rebel, all these will require money. It would be great if I could find an investor. Ruohuo thought to himself. And it can't be someone from the village, it's better to be a wandering guy like Kakuzu. Third generation's purpose of surveillance is too shameless. Regarding Orochimaru's anomaly today, Wakahara made a little evaluation before. It was found that the lying and deception index was less than 30%. In addition to the promotion of the will of fire theory proposed by Ruohuo himself, Orochimaru seemed to be giving him suggestions. No flaws or purpose can be seen. Combined with the sight that he vaguely noticed at the moment when he showed his 3 Magatama. Ruohuo has reason to suspect that this mission is most likely a test of the third generation's purpose. After all, rescue missions like this can best reflect a person's moral character. That's why Ruohuo set off in such a hurry. What stands out is that he has excellent moral character. Isn't it just a rescue mission? He is the successor of the Will of Fire, so he is not afraid at all. What a coincidence. Orochimaru thought so too. Just after completing an S-level mission, he was given a B-level rescue mission. Although the teacher was right on the surface, he asked him to take this opportunity to educate the child Ruohuo. But how could Orochimaru not know that the teacher was a warning to him for having sacrificed 6 Konoha ninjas in his previous mission? Just a B-level rescue mission. I just tried to bring people back to Konoha alive, what can be difficult? Episode 34, Attacked. After crossing this forest, we are about to leave the border of the country of fire, Lord Ruohuo. Let's rest for a while. The leaves blocked a lot of moonlight, and the dense forest was completely dark. The evening wind occasionally blew over the forest, causing a rustling sound. Teacher, don't move around here. I'll come back as soon as I go. Ruohuo disappeared with a whoosh. The surroundings were pitch black, but Ruohuo was not lacking in vitamin A, and Sharingan's vision enhancement allowed him to maintain sufficient mobility in the dark. The closer we get to the border, the less human presence there is, and the forest is full of wild game, and Ruohuo can't wait any longer. Whoosh! With one shot of shuriken, an unlucky hare reports to the Pure Land. Ruohuo dealt with two too neatly, but just when he was hesitating whether to braze or beg for flowers, a sudden change occurred. Call out. It was a Qianbon shot hidden in the dark night, piercing the air without making too much sound, and headed straight for Ruohuo's neck. Does this rabbit have any accomplices? Ruohuo was keenly aware of the danger, and Samigatama quickly locked on the Sanbon, lifted the rabbit and blocked it. Puff, Qianbon penetrated 3/3 of the meat, but it was rabbit meat. Ruohuo noticed that the green color of Qianbon's pierced part was obviously highly poisonous. This rabbit is obviously inedible. I will avenge you. Ruohuo stood up and Sharingan locked the direction of Senbon's shot. This is obviously an encounter, and the enemy is hidden and we are clear. The designated location for the mission is within the Kingdom of Earth. And where they are now is the border between the 3 countries of fire, rain and earth, and the enemy is likely to come from these 3 countries. So which ninja will it be? Reason tells Ruohuo that the probability of the enemy Awagakure's identity is relatively high. Because the Land of Rain had little role in the Third Ninja War, and the appearance of Awagakure was constantly harassing Konoha's defense line. In addition, they didn't notice any signs of being followed along the way, so there was a high probability that the attacker would not be one of their own. But intuition told Ruohuo. He has shown so much talent in Konoha one after another that some rats in the gutter should be unable to sit still. While thinking, the enemy's second wave of offensive has arrived. Whoosh 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 whoosh. One shuriken after another pierced the air, many of which were kunai connected to the detonating talisman. They were shot from all directions. The enemy had obviously surrounded him. So many people? If Ruohuo frowned, he could catch a hare and still encounter this battle. Fire-style fire formation wall. If the 2 seals of fire activate ninjutsu, flames will be sprayed out from the mouth and circled in a circle, quickly spraying an airtight wall of fire all around. This is a B-level defensive water style. If activated with fire style, the defense will inevitably be weaker than a quality water style. But if the fire has found a solution, it is to let the flames flow like water, replace mass with kinetic energy, and strengthen the defense. Puff 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 puff. The fire array blocked the shurikens from all directions, and even the gap caused by the explosion of the detonating talisman was quickly filled by the flowing flames. Ruohuo is very satisfied with the effect. Facts have proved that with the high-temperature immunity of Little Fire God, the fire style, which is famous for its power, can also have the ability to defend. It's a pity that clothes are not immune to high temperatures. Otherwise, we can just use the fire prison technique and save some chakra. Ruohuo raised his eyebrows. At the same time, the enemy also came to kill him. Wind escape, great breakthrough. Loud shouts sounded from 3 directions at the same time, followed by a blinding wind that swept in. This is to blow Ruohuo's wall of fire directly into Ruohuo's face. If the fire can ignore the high temperature, he can ignore the close for the time being, but he is not immune to the impact of the wind escape, and he also has to consider the suffocation effect. And Ruohuo's solution was simple and crude. Fire-style fire dragon bullet. The fire dragon quickly condensed under his feet, directly lifting Ruohuo into the sky. Judging from the trajectory of the shuriken launches, there are at least 6 enemies, and 3 of them can use wind escape. Could they be Sunagekir's people? Ruohuo went up to the sky, his brows furrowed, and he was both Du Chanben and Feng Dun. It was hard not to think of that. But Wakagaku soon gave up on this idea. Now Sunagekir has just lost the 3rd generation Kazekage. The entire defense line is in chaos because he is looking for his own Kazekage. Plus Kumogakir's attack, how can he have time to cause trouble for Konoha? It can't be a ninja from the land of rain. Ruohuo muttered, looking at the forest where the fire had spread under his feet. He believed his intuitive judgment more and more. Although there is no rule saying that Iwagakure ninjas cannot use wind escape. But compared to the identity of this team as invaders, Ruohuo still prefers the term backstabbers. Is it you, Elder Danzo? If Ruohuo formed a seal with his hands, Sharingan locked onto the location where the enemy was most densely populated. Fire-style, dragon flame. Ode. The high-temperature flame broke through the blockade of branches and leaves in a straight line, like a dragon's breath, heading straight for the enemy. At this stage, Ruohuo is very clear about his strengths and weaknesses. He can only use fire-style, and with the blessing of Little Fire God, he is definitely at the level of elite Jonin. But apart from that, his physique, speed, and strength are all obviously shortcomings. With 3 Magatama, it may be possible to operate it in a 1v1 situation. But in situations like this where there are too many 1 versus, let's just be a fire-style magician. Disperse. The enemies immediately dispersed and distanced themselves from each other, avoiding Ruohuo's first counterattack. Ruohuo did not stop the spell. Sharingan locked on the slowest unlucky guy, controlled the dragon flame and sprayed it. Although the distance is not close, fire-style speed is obviously faster than this unlucky guy. Help me stop him. Feeling the scorching heat getting closer, the ninja was obviously panicked and quickly called for support from his companions. But what awaited him was a ruthless order. Knock him down now. As soon as he finished speaking, a ninja quickly formed seals with his hands and aimed at Ruohuo. Water-style water shockwave. Boom. A huge stream of water spurted out from this ninja's mouth, carrying a powerful impact and heading straight for Ruohuo in midair. Sure enough, he came after me. First there is wind escape and then water style, and the only thing missing is darkness. Facing the water that was about to reach him, Ruohuo gritted his teeth, but did not stop dragon flame. He wanted to kill one first. Ah. The screams were so harsh in the night sky that the fire dragon at Ruohuo's feet also encountered the impact at the same time. This water-style shot was so powerful that if Ruohuo lost the opportunity to dodge, the fire dragon under his feet was almost blown away. But Ruohuo was ready when he made up his mind. He simply gave up on the fire dragon, and when the water shockwave was about to arrive, Chakra was ready. Fire-style, great fireball. With the support of the Little Fire God and the main skill, this most basic sea-level fire style has 5 times the damage on the initial panel. What's more, Ruohuo has used enough chakra. The flaming giant fist smashed into water shockwave, directly crushing the water style in a devastating way, and then fell from the sky. The fist expanded more and more, and slammed into the water style ninja like a meteorite. Nanny! This water style ninja looked horrified. He didn't even think of hiding from a ninjutsu of this scale and such a scorching temperature. Are you confused? Are you dumbfounded? With the help of the reaction force, Ruohuo, who rose instead of falling after the fire dragon disappeared, looked excited and ferocious. This is not a Chunin test, Hundens. Episode 35, The Will of Fire. The Great Fire World. Oh? Orochimaru had already set off when Wakaki activated the fire formation stone. But 2 figures suddenly stopped him. The 2 have different body shapes, and both wear hoods. One has a mask with patterns on the roots, and the other only wears sunglasses. Ryoma-kun, Jiren-kun. I didn't expect to see you 2 here. Orochimaru's smile was still gentle. The moment these 2 people appeared, he knew what happened. So the mission given to you by Elder Danzo is to stop me? Orochimaru raised 2 fingers. The 2 of them immediately felt unparalleled pressure. Standing in front of them is the strongest disciple of the 3rd generation, one of the Sannin, Konoha Cold Lord, Orochimaru. Danzo-sama didn't mean that, Orochimaru-sama. Yamanaka immediately shouted loudly, and the 2 of them bowed down together and entered a high alert state at the same time. We have no intention to be enemies with Orochimaru-sama, we are just conveying a few words of Danzo Elder's instructions. Is it? The smile on Orochimaru's face remained unchanged. Then I would like to thank Elder Danzo. After all, it is very difficult to face two people at the same time. I wonder what the Elder Danzo ordered. Danzo-sama wants to cooperate with Orochimaru-sama. Yamanaka spoke quickly and said anxiously, Elder Danzo is willing to support Lord Orochimaru in his candidacy for the 4th Hokage. Oh? Orochimaru's expression remained unchanged, and he glanced in the direction behind the two of them. The fire lit up the night sky, and along with the bursts of black smoke, the explosion of the detonating talisman was endless. This is really flattering news. Orochimaru smiled and lowered his fingers in the seal. So, Elder Danzo, what do you want from me? Hearing this, Yamanaka and Aburame Ryoma breathed a sigh of relief. Yamanaka took out a scroll from his arms and threw it towards Orochimaru. Here are all records of wood-style experiments, from the 2nd Hokage period to the present, of course, only part of them. This is Danzo-sama's sincerity. Danzo-sama wants Orochimaru-sama to help restart this plan if Orochimaru-sama is willing. Danzo-sama is willing to provide all support to Orochimaru-sama, including running for the position of 4th Hokage. And all Orochimaru-sama needs to do is wait here for a while. Orochimaru frowned slightly. He did not open the scroll, nor did he doubt its authenticity. Orochimaru also does not doubt Danzo's commitment. Danzo's support is indeed a great help for him to succeed the Hokage. Orochimaru looked into the air again. The fire has illuminated half of the sky, and his students are obviously fighting fiercely with others, and the battle is still very fierce. Orochimaru clearly. That child was also one of the conditions for Danzo to cooperate with him. The mission of these two people is just to stop him. When everything is over, Genbu will naturally be able to forge enough traces and help him stay out of the matter. Only. This cooperation doesn't seem very fair to me, you two. Orochimaru put a smile on his face again and walked straight past the two of them, but did not return the scroll. That child is my student. I have put a lot of effort into him. Even the teacher is full of expectations for this child. I am completely sincere to Elder Danzo. But Elder Danzo doesn't seem to care very much. Boom. 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 Ruohuo was doing two things. While keeping the fire dragon bombs flying in the air, the great fireball switched forms again, turning into fire bombs, and it was a covering bombardment directed at the bottom. The absolute air superiority allows Ruohuo to always control the offensive power. The absolute control of the great fireball, coupled with a full 500% increase in power, allows Ruohuo to maintain absolute suppression over enemies on the ground. No, it's too noisy. This brat is beyond the range of my ninjutsu. What should I do? Why hasn't he used up his chakra yet? There are 3 minutes at most. If this kid doesn't come down yet, we have to retreat. Prepare to take away the body. No evidence can be left behind. The masked ninjas communicated quickly while dodging. In the sky, Ruohuo has completely entered the rampage mode. Come out and confront me head-on. You bastards. If Ruohuo holds the Yin seal with both hands. Most fire styles end with this seal. Under the buff of Little Fire God's 200% ninjutsu activation, Ruaka can use this seal to use at least 20 fire styles. But now he only plans to use the most basic Great Fireball. If you don't plan to come out, then the whole forest will be reduced to ashes. If Hua had accumulated enough chakra, he injected 50 times the chakra into this basic sea-level ninjutsu to increase the scale. The consumption is equivalent to 5 normal full-power Great Fireballs. But it is 5 times the power and 50 times the scale. The Will of Fire, the Great Fire World. This is a super giant fireball that is as dazzling as an artificial sun. The dark night was completely ignited, and the entire forest was illuminated by the light of the flames. Boom. The artificial sun hits the forest. With such high temperatures and such a scale, there is no way to avoid it, we can only face it head-on. If the second Hokage Senju Tobarama was here, perhaps in this waterless land, he could forcefully resist with his unparalleled water style. But with such a super-standard fire style, even if it is second Hokage, if there is no necessary reason, I am afraid that I will choose to use Flying Thunder God to avoid its edge. What's more, just a few rats in the gutter. This is. Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka, who did not participate in the battle, stared with wide eyes, watching the giant great fireball fall like the sun falling. Their expressions were dull, and they even forgot to think for a moment. Retreat quickly. Don't be affected. Aburame Ryoma reacted first, alerted his colleagues, and then ran back without hesitation. What kind of monster is this that can use fire style on such a scale? What kind of technique is that? Uchiha also masters this fire style, forbidden technique. This is definitely a forbidden technique. This can only be a forbidden technique. No wonder Orochimaru had already figured out their intentions, but was still willing to stay for a while. Such a monster. All the plans Danzo-sama laid out a week in advance are not enough to destroy this Uchiha brat. Unless Orochimaru takes the initiative to take action, it is simply impossible. But will Orochimaru choose to cooperate with Danzo? Watch the blazing light fall. The heat in Orochimaru's eyes did not diminish at all, and he calmly took the seal, preparing to deal with the impact of this heat wave. Is this the limit of your will of fire, Lord Ruohuo? For you, I gave up a shortcut to becoming a Hokage. Episode 36, Teacher, can I burn those mice to death? Tisk. If it were Fugaku, what would he use to block this move? Looking at the charred blackness all over the ground, the once dense trees have become bare, leaving only the trunks still burning with flames. This is why Ruohuo feels that he may not win against Fugaku, but he will definitely not lose. He can rely on his superiority in the air to make powerful moves in the sky. Fugaku on the ground can only do hard-hitting and dodging. Uchiha and Senju really can't get along. Fire style also causes too much damage to the environment. It's a sin. Ruohuo stepped on the fire dragon and fell down, and found several corpses in the thick ashes. After all, Great Fireball is a sea-level ninjutsu, and its basic damage is a bit uninteresting, otherwise it wouldn't be called good fire. But no matter how basic ninjutsu is, after quantitative changes lead to qualitative changes, it will not be a concept. If Great Fire Destruction is put as the main skill, the scale will be 50 times. Well, I guess it won't be used. After all, the basic consumption of the two techniques is not the same concept. It's a really horrifying scene. Orochimaru's body emerged from the ground next to him, his hoarse voice full of appreciation and a hint of surprise. You seem to have turned this place into purgatory, Lord Ruohuo. Purgatory. It's really an apt description. If the B-level main skill is still fire style, maybe this name can be used. Wakaki glanced at Orochimaru and saw that there was no mucus on him. I don't know if it's because I haven't undergone any software modifications and can't use it, or I've secretly washed my hands. He just saw Orochimaru rushing over at the last moment. They said that the teacher had been assassinated by their people. Although I didn't really believe it, I was still a little angry. Ruohuo said expressionlessly, these people are really hateful, even the ninjutsu they use is the type I hate the most. Fortunately, I got Chunon's will of fire, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to make it to the teacher. I can't stand it until I come. Who can't hold on? Orochimaru has reservations about this issue. Compared with these, he is more curious about what is revealed in Ruohuo's words. This kid seems to have noticed something. Oh? What ninjutsu did they use on Wakahokuin? Water style and wind style, although they don't have the earth style that I hate the most, they always like to launch sneak attacks like mice. Ruohuo said with a look of disgust, they obviously don't have the will of fire in them, but they have a very dark smell, like rats in the sewers, only daring to run around in the dark. Orochimaru suppressed a smile. Sewer rats who only dare to run around in the dark. For that elder, it was really an apt description. So is this kid even so keen in this area? If it weren't for the fact that Wakaki knew nothing about Danzo's roots, Orochimaru would have even suspected that Wakaki was alluding to something. The will of fire is hot and bright, Ruohuo Fire Lord. Orochimaru guided, there are many things in this world that are opposed to each other and yet rely on each other. Where there is light, there is darkness, and where there is sunshine, there are shadows. If you inherit the will of fire, then naturally, someone will inherit the will of darkness. You are destined to be enemies. Ruohuo held back his laughter. These words, he had used them before when educating Obito. It's a pity that Obito didn't understand it well, but little Shui was stunned for a long time. So, is Orochimaru giving him psychological hints? Let him fight Danzo in the future? Or are you reminding him that there is an old man named Danzo in Konoha who will target him? Interesting. Hey. If they are enemies, can I burn them to death at any time? Teacher. Ruohuo asked straightforwardly. Orochimaru smiled slightly, as if he had expected Ruohuo to have this problem. Certainly. Since he is your enemy, it is natural to let him feel the temperature of the will of fire. You didn't burn the enemy to death, but you purified the world. Really looking forward to it. If Wakahara becomes the leader of the Uchiha clan, will he retreat again and again in the face of pressure from the top management? Especially the leader of the will of darkness, Elder Danzo. Under the teacher's will, I walked in the darkness of Konoha for so many years. Even Konoha ninjas will eliminate any existence that is considered a threat without hesitation. The Senju clan, including the boy Nezuki. Back then, Shinshu stepped on a trap during the mission and was taken away by the detonating talisman. Today, Ruohuo was attacked by rats just after leaving the village. Oh, how can there be so many coincidences in this world? Orochimaru is more optimistic about this child with a bright future than working with those mice. And after Konoha ushered in a new era. There is no need for those dregs of the old era to exist. I understand, teacher. Ruohuo nodded thoughtfully. If I encounter these rats again, I will directly use the will of fire to purify them. Bug team failed? Danzo received the report from his personal guards that night. Aburame Ryoma's bug brought the information back immediately. Forbidden level fire style, a giant fireball comparable to the heat of the sun. Why haven't I heard that Uchiha has such forbidden techniques? Danzo frowned. It was impossible for Aburame Ryoma to deceive him, but the information he brought back was too exaggerated. The fire-style ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan, as early as when Uchiha Madara was buried, Uchiha was handed over to Konoha in full. This was the teacher himself at that time. Did Uchiha hide any forbidden techniques since that time? But if this is true, then why is there no mention of Uchiha Madara in the records? Danzo was puzzled. But Aburame Ryoma's bugs are still waiting for instructions, and now is not the time to explore this. The point is Orochimaru. Aburame Ryoma recorded Orochimaru's response word for word. The most important part is undoubtedly the word sincerity. Isn't that how you show your sincerity to me, by not killing dragons and horses and treating people? What else do you want? Danzo frowned. Orochimaru is more greedy than he thought. They have already given him those precious experimental records, and this guy still wants to ask for them? Danzo thought about the chips in his hand. War exploits, forbidden techniques. Orochimaru wants nothing more than these two things now. One is the Hokage position that he couldn't get. One is what he desires most. Perhaps? It's time to make a choice. Episode 37. There must be some misunderstanding here. Ruohuo has not been able to find a mouse that can be purified for the time being. But he met a real Iwagakure ninja. It was a 3-person team, all wearing Iwagakure's forehead protectors. They met in the forest and launched a surprise attack on Ruohuo when they met. There is only one kid from Konoha, take him down. Move quickly. There may be Konoha ninjas behind him, so fight quickly. Leave this kid to me, I like this kind of little guy with thin skin and tender meat the best. Fire style, the fire is extinguished. Spread. With 20% consumption and twice the power, after Ruohuo spewed out a sea of fire, the 3 Magatama locked onto the 3 Iwagakure ninjas, who retreated decisively, and transformed into seals again. Fire style, fire wave. 3 more flame shock waves erupted from the sea of fire, accelerated a second time, and headed straight for the 3 Iwagakure ninjas. The 2 Iwagakure genin were unable to respond in time and were hit by the fire wave. The high-temperature flames smashed them onto the trees and the ground with a powerful impact. After a burst of screams, there was no more movement. The remaining Iwagakure is a genin. For a 3-person team like this, without a ninja to guide them, there should be at least one chunin leading the team. This is a battlefield. What is the difference between the configuration of all genin members and giving away their lives? But Iwagakure doesn't take this path. In Iwagakure of the Stormtrooper style, the only thing you play with is quantity. Earth style, Tulu returns. This Iwagakure genin mobilized the earth under his feet and blocked the impact of the flames with an earth wall. Just as he was about to confirm the condition of his companion, he suddenly felt a stinging pain in his heart. He lowered his head and saw that a kunai with hot blood had penetrated his chest. Your progress surprises me, Lord Ruohuo. Orochimaru took back the kunai, shook off the blood on it, and praised Wakahuo not far away. Is it possible to activate a second ninjutsu with the help of fire? This is not the first time they have encountered enemies. The degree of danger of this mission has obviously exceeded the B-level judgment of the mission itself. Orochimaru deliberately let Wakahui adapt to the rhythm of the battlefield. And the ability and imagination shown by Wakahuo are constantly refreshing Orochimaru's cognition. Based on the fire extinguished by the powerful fire, the second launch of water, fire wave is more like what water-style ninjas often do. I've been thinking about how to release multiple ninjutsu at once, sensei. Ruohuo neatly plundered the loot from the 2 corpses and responded, when I use the special fire style, the load on my eyes will be very heavy. If there is no way to quickly deal with the enemy, then the situation will soon turn against me. My competitor is the Fugaku clan leader. He has the blessing of Jonin's will of fire and the clan leader's will of fire. He will definitely find this weakness of mine, and I must find a way to overcome it. Orochimaru actually wanted to say to Ruohuo, my child, your will of fire can only be used by yourself. Although the head of your family is Jonin, he does not have the so-called blessing of the will of fire, he is just a normal person. But Ruohuo's worries are actually not unreasonable. At such a young age, if you want to challenge the leader of the clan, there are always a lot of disadvantages. Your direction is right, but I suggest that after completing this mission, you can ask Mr. Third Generation for help. Third Generation Master has the title of Professor Ninjutsu. He can definitely give you better advice on how to combine ninjutsu. Orochimaru smiled and handed the last ninja bag to Wakaki. Good teacher. Ruohuo accepted it, took out the time and space scroll and put it away, and then took out the mission scroll. But then again, teacher. We have been searching this area for so long, why has the team in need of assistance never come out, huh? Ruohuo suddenly entered combat mode again. Teacher, be careful, there are still enemies. Whizzing. As soon as Ruohuo finished speaking, two figures suddenly appeared, one with a mask covering his face but with orange hair, and the other wearing only sunglasses and a hood, full of killer aura. It is Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka who are the two personal guards of the root leader Danzo. Lord Orochimaru, your mission has changed. This is the new mission content. Aburame Ryoma stretched out his hand, and a scroll wrapped in insects flew towards Orochimaru. Please choose whether you want to carry out the mission. Once confirmed, please go to Kane in 2 days. Uchiha kid. What do you want to do? Aburame Ryoma shouted loudly when he noticed that Wakahuo suddenly started to form seals. Humph. 2 rats in the gutter, I can feel the dirty dark will in you even with my eyes closed. Ruohuo inhaled sharply, fire style, dragon flame. This is the fastest and most powerful move in ninjutsu's arsenal at Wakaka's mid-range range. Disperse. The two of them activated their magic powers and dispersed instantly, but how could the fire allow them to do so? Samagatama has locked on Yamanaka Jiruto from the beginning. This guy's hair color revealed his identity as a Yamanaka tribesman, and it was impossible for Ruaka to let him act. Spewing dragon flame from his mouth, he chases Yamanaka to treat people and sprays it all. Uchiha brat, are you going to disobey the village's orders? Aburame Ryoma shouted immediately after landing, and at the same time, he formed a seal to release insects and prepared to attack Wakahui. But before he could make any move, a strong murderous intention suddenly enveloped his whole body. Aburame Ryoma was suddenly startled and looked at Orochimaru suddenly. Ryoma-kun, please be patient. Orochimaru took the scroll, raised both fingers at the same time, and looked at Aburame Ryoma with a smile. Ruohuo Lord is usually docile and well-behaved, and would not attack others easily. There must be some reason why he reacted like this today. Ryoma-kun might as well wait and see what happens, and wait until I ask this child. Then you should ask quickly. Aburame Ryoma cursed secretly, what happened to Orochimaru? If you take the scroll but don't open it, does this mean you need to cooperate with Danzo-sama? Wakahuo-kun? Orochimaru kept smiling and looked at Wakahuo. Ruohuo indeed stopped attacking, but the movements of his hands did not stop. He is hiding, teacher, give me 2 minutes and I will go and purify him. Fire style, fire dragon bullet. Ode. A giant flaming dragon appeared out of thin air. Without taking off his shoes, Ruohuo jumped forward, landed firmly on the head of the fire dragon, and then soared into the sky. Seeing Ruohuo flying higher and higher, it was obvious that he was planning to launch a range-wide fire-style bombing in this area again. Aburame Ryoma was worried, but Orochimaru still looked unhurried. Ruohuo Lord? Teacher has something to say to you, Wakeo-kun? Fire style, the art of singing with dragon flames. 4 dragon heads dropped from the sky and bombarded the place where Yamanaka was curing people. The smile on Orochimaru's face became even wider. He looked at Aburame Ryoma again, spread his hands and said, Ryoma-kun, I'm sorry. This kid is a little busy now, how about, you wait a little longer? Episode 38, Ship-Based Machine Gun. Orochimaru-sama. Aburame Ryoma shouted, why don't you first take a look at the conditions Danzo-sama offers you? Danzo-sama has shown enough sincerity this time. He can eliminate a competitor for you and provide you with a prominent military exploit. Such an offer is already very generous, do you really not want to consider it? Ryoma-kun, this is not the person I remember who could remain calm at that moment. Orochimaru looked at Ruohuo, who was flying away, then looked at the unopened scroll in his hand, chuckled and shook his head. Look, aren't I thinking about this? Orochimaru played with the scroll in his hand, without looking at it. He had already roughly guessed something based on Aburame Ryoma's words just now. Danzo-sama wants to cooperate with me. In addition to showing enough sincerity, you must at least show enough strength, right? Otherwise, why would I abandon the oldest ninja clan in Konoha to engage in such a risky cooperation with Danzo-sama? Aburame Ryoma's expression was shocked. Orochimaru actually plans to cooperate with the Uchiha clan? Just because this brat is his disciple. Let's make a bet, Ryoma-kun. Orochimaru looked into the distance. I remember that Jiren-kun became Danzo Elder's bodyguard 3 years ago. He was selected from a group of special jonin. If he can survive in Lord Ruohuo's hands for 5 minutes, I will open this scroll in front of Lord Ruohuo. How? The bombing of Long Yan's singing technique did not work. Yamanaka ran out of the flames, using the big tree as a cover, his figure flashing. Ruohuo formed a seal with his hands, and the 3 Magatama locked Yamanaka in the air. The technique he wants most right now is actually Senju Tobarama's water-style water break wave. With fast attack speed and strong penetration, it can be called a high-pressure water gun. If activated with fire style, coupled with various buff increases, it might be a high-temperature laser. Used as a sniper rifle, he might just be able to ignore the bunker and blow up the head of this Yamanaka root ninja. Dear Mr. Orochimaru has already said that when he encounters a guy with a dark will, he can choose to take action directly. This is not killing, this is purifying the world. Ruohuo was still thinking about whether he could find an opportunity to implement the teacher's teachings after returning to Konoha. Unexpectedly, I got the opportunity to take action so soon. So Orochimaru really has no intention of stopping me at all? Killing Yamanaka and treating people here, Orochimaru is fully responsible. Ruohuo kept his distance, not intending to give this guy a chance to activate the Yamanaka secret technique. I took the time to glance in the direction of Orochimaru and Aburame Ryoma, and found that neither of them were chasing them. Ruohuo is no stranger to the combination of these two. In the original time and space, after Orochimaru failed to run for Hokage, he defected to Danzo and became Danzo's bodyguard, and was a colleague of Aburame Ryoma. But now at this point in time, if Hua discovers Orochimaru seems to be still stopping Aburame Ryoma? Interesting. Ruohuo raised his eyebrows. Fire-style fire dragon bullet. Ruohuo pressed his hands on the dragon's head, injected chakra violently, and the flaming dragon suddenly opened its bloody mouth. After possessing 3 Magatama, several dragon ninjutsu can also try to fuse. What Ruohuo needs to do now is to first fuse the fire, water, dragon bullets with the fire, earth, dragon bullets and install the ship-based machine guns. Chug tug tug tug. If the fire is kept at a certain distance, the fire dragon under its feet will be aimed at Yamanaka and it will keep firing fire bombs. This damn little devil. Yamanaka gritted his teeth. The fire in the sky was beyond the range of the secret technique. He had no room to counterattack and could only be beaten passively. The speed of flying is always faster than running on the ground. Yamanaka quickly discovered this reality and used the big tree as a cover to dodge, performing a standard tactical evasion for Wakahui. Spin. Jump. Never stop. Yamanaka didn't dare to stop. If he hesitated for a moment, what awaited him was a violent bombardment. Is this kid crazy? The impact point was predicted in advance by Ruohuo, and he was about to be hit by countless fire bombs. Yamanaka cursed secretly, and escaped with a substitute technique. The body shape changes, attack and defense alternate briefly, Yamanaka quickly forms seals and aims at Wakahuo. Ninpo Shin, damn it. Before the secret technique was activated, Yamanaka saw fire bombs coming from the sky. Do you still want to play these little tricks under the gaze of these eyes? You get a rats, who gave you the courage to deceive the teacher and dare to compete with me? Ziny. If the fire controls the fire, the dragon flame is fully activated, and the fire bombs are as dense as multiple shadow clone. But this place is in a dense forest after all. Yamanaka immediately locked onto a towering tree. As long as he dodges this wave of attacks, he still has a chance. Whoosh. Yamanaka dashes instantly. Snapped. Ruohuo clapped his hands. Yamanaka finally rushed to the big tree, and the first fire bomb exploded not far from him. Ninjutsu. Yamanaka didn't dare to stop, so he formed seals in advance to prepare to activate the secret technique. This might be his last chance. But when he aimed at the young man riding the fire dragon again. Fire-style, double dragon flame prison. The 2 fire, water, dragon bullets bypassed the big tree, one on the left and the other on the right, and finally hit Yamanaka. At the moment of the hit, the forms of the 2 fire dragons changed again, directly turning into a cage of flames. Fire-style fire, water, dragon bullet plus fire-style fire, water, prison technique. Just like Orochimaru said. Wakahuo did not change the form of the 2 ninjutsu, but used the power of the fire to activate the second ninjutsu. Just like a water-style ninja creates a large amount of water flow out of thin air in a waterless land, and then uses the water flow to activate ninjutsu again. Let me out. My eyes. I am Danzo-sama's. The battle between ninjas often only takes a split second to win or lose. The fire prison lasted a minute. But Yamanaka only lasted less than half of the time. And when Orochimaru and Aburame Ryoma arrived, all they were left with was a scorched corpse. Have you defeated another enemy, Lord Ruohuo? Orochimaru ignored the expression on Aburame Ryoma's face next to him and said with a smile, this is already the 15th enemy you have killed. Theoretically, this has exceeded the danger level of an A-level mission. When we return to Konoha, I will explain the situation to Mr. Hokage. Next to him, Ryoma Aburame's face became very ugly. It will be the 16th soon, teacher. Ruohuo makes him a draw with one hand, holding one fist in front of the mouth. I just had an idea on the way. The dragon flame technique is a high-temperature gun. If you install a convergence device on the musket, maybe you can be a great sniper within 10 meters? Cinchers are not hard to find either. With his 90% high-temperature immunity and the protection of his own chakra, pressing the gun with bare hands is not a problem. Fire style, dragon flame gun. Episode 39, Teacher, have the enemies already attacked us? Ruohuo's assumption is correct. Pressing the gun with bare hands, Dragon Flame's convergence state was forcibly increased by about 3 meters, and then the speed of spread was not that fast. The key is that after the pressure increases, the jet speed becomes much faster. Aburame Ryoma's insect clone didn't even react and was burned to ashes. TSK, it turns out to be a clone. Ruohuo curled his lips and looked at Orochimaru, not very happy. The teacher told him to run away. There will always be a chance to meet you again, Wakahuo-kun. Orochimaru smiled and said, if it doesn't work out, it's too late for us to start chasing him now. It's better to save people first, teacher. Ruohuo's heart only moved for a second before giving up the idea of pursuing him. Although I don't know why Orochimaru is also targeting Danzo, he has no intention of becoming Orochimaru's sword. It's easy to kill one person, but it's not easy for Elder Danzo to train his subordinates. Compared with eradicating the rats in the gutter, the people waiting for rescue are more important. Ruohuo said seriously. Indeed. Orochimaru smiled and took out the scroll from his arms and threw it to Ruohuo. This is also a rescue mission, the level of danger is higher, and it is probably a trap. Lord Ruohuo, why not make your own decision? Ruohuo opened the scroll, his expression gradually became weird. It is indeed a rescue mission, but it would be more appropriate to describe it as a support mission. Another team encountered danger while performing a mission and sent out a signal for help and called for support. And this task, he is really not unfamiliar with it. The mission requirement is to attack an extremely important material supply line in Iwagakure and destroy the Canopy Bridge. Ruohuo is a little confused. Why is this a mission? At this time, shouldn't White Fan be performing this task? Why did it end up in Orochimaru's hands, and it was given to him by Danzo? I always find it a bit of a mystery. The mission location is here, Mr. Ruohuo. Orochimaru very thoughtfully took out a map and pointed out their current location on the map, the location of Canopy Bridge. Considering the high probability of Iwagakure ninjas appearing along the way, it will take us 20 hours at the fastest to reach this place. The distance itself is not short, plus there are dangers you may encounter on the way. 20 hours is considered reasonable. But the key is, this task was given to the teacher by those mice, right? Wakahui looked directly into Orochimaru's eyes. Although it was wrapped in bugs at the time, I saw it with a Sharingan when I left. This is the scroll, teacher. One thing to say. If Ruohuo still doesn't know what happened, then he would really be sorry for the soul genes of his director father and strong woman mother. Indeed, Lord Ruohuo. Orochimaru had no intention of denying it. This mission originally belonged to another team from Konoha. Their departure time was only a week earlier than ours. And what I can be sure of is that they did not return to Konoha before we set off. Orochimaru looked at Wakaki. At this point, Orochimaru is ready to spread some of Konoha's dark knowledge to Wakahui. For example, what kind of organization do the people Ruohuo killed the night before and the scorched corpse on the ground belong to? Orochimaru wants to know more. How will this child react when he knows all this? Perhaps this would be a bit cruel to a child. But for a ninja, especially a ninja with big dreams, some things are better known sooner. At least, I can live a little longer and not die in a trap at a young age. So, what the teacher means is, the rats have actually penetrated into the village. Ruohuo frowned and said with a serious face, they even infiltrated the upper echelons of the village and gained a lot of power? Ruohuo became extremely excited again. I'll tell you, there's something wrong with the 2 gatekeepers at the Hokage building. The smile on Orochimaru's face froze for 2 seconds. Wakeo-kun, what are you talking about? Why are those 2 defensive ninjas involved again? Haven't they already been burned to the hospital by you using fire style? I have never understood it. They are obviously spies, but Grandpa Hokage, the teacher, and Umbu's uncles all say there is nothing wrong with them. Ruohuo said impassionedly, now I understand, it turns out they are the rats. It's just that I didn't get Chunon's will of fire at that time, so I couldn't sense the dark aura on them. Damn it. Ruohuo slammed the scroll to the ground. Konoha has been infiltrated by these rats. Orochimaru was silent. Orochimaru was silent for 2 minutes. Orochimaru couldn't help it anymore. Wakeo-kun. We have to save people, teacher. Ruohuo said suddenly. Huh? Orochimaru still couldn't follow Ruohuo's train of thought. Rescue people? Yes. We must save people. Ruohuo pointed to the scroll on the ground with a serious face. Teacher, didn't you realize that this is their conspiracy? Conspiracy? Orochimaru is still confused. Have you discovered it? What did you find? Yes, it's a conspiracy. Ruohuo said firmly, from the beginning, our rescue mission was to support this team, but they changed the mission content. They don't want us to go to support, and they keep sending people to attack us to delay time. Seeing that the time has almost been delayed, then hand over the real mission content to us so that we can erase the traces of them modifying the mission. And in the end, this mission will fail, and the people we want to rescue may also die. These rats will have the last laugh and continue to erode Konoha. After Orochimaru listened, his thoughts suddenly became smoother. Is that so? To be honest, if you don't roughly know what the truth is, Orochimaru really can't find any fault. I see. Orochimaru nodded. I understand, Lord Ruohuo, you are right. Orochimaru really figured it out. If you want to keep up with Ruohuo's thinking, the first thing you have to do is forget the so-called truth. This child has a unique perspective that seems absurd, but is logically rigorous and cannot find any faults. Change the angle. Danzo, and the rats under his command. Haha. Aren't they just spies who have infiltrated the top brass of Konoha? Then we have no time to waste, teacher. Ruohuo took off the shoes on his feet. He had no time to take them off during the battle just now. Although the soles of his feet were covered with a layer of chakra, the soles were still softened a lot. This makes Wakahuo very distressed. He has a relationship with these shoes. He originally planned to pass them on to Obito first and then Shui. Snapped, Ruohuo clasped his hands together and formed a seal suddenly. Fire style, how fire dragon. Ode. The fire dragon appears out of thin air, if the fire light steps on it. Teacher, come up. We have to get to the bridge in the shortest possible time. Orochimaru took half a second to consider whether to ride the fire dragon. The answer is that his physique may not be suitable. The journey is too far, so don't consume too much chakra, Ruohuo. Orochimaru bit his finger and slammed it to the ground. Psychic Art. Episode 40, What? They want to surprise Awagakure. Orochimaru, it's you again. If you want to borrow my power, are the sacrifices for 100 people ready? A huge snake with purple stripes all over its body appeared. It was the big snake from Longdi Cave, Wanshi. As a representative of evil psychic beasts, Wanshi will ask for sacrifices every time he is channeled, but his strength cannot be underestimated. It can be said that a large part of the reason why Sannin is so famous comes from their respective psychic beasts. Of course, Master Wanshi. Orochimaru responded with ease and calmness, I have prepared enough sacrifices for Master Wanshi, but I need to ask Master Wanshi to help him on his way. This is a battlefield, a place where there is no shortage of sacrifice. Is that kid also my sacrifice? Wanshi raised its huge head and looked at Ruohuo in midair. Then, it faced Wakahui's 3 Magatama Sharingan. Teacher, I also feel a strong dark aura on it. Master Wanshi comes from Longdi Cave. I have a contractual relationship with Longdi Cave, Mr. Ruohuo. Orochimaru tried to reconcile at the edge of what was acceptable to both of them. Those eyes. Orochimaru, I changed my mind. This kid can replace 5, for sacrifices, let me eat him. Wanshi said so and did so. What kind of sacrifice does it want to eat? Does it need Orochimaru's consent? Orochimaru was indeed a little helpless. He was about to end his channeling and switch to a snake to ride, but then he suddenly heard Ruohuo's provocative voice. Let's wait until you catch me, Baga. Let's talk. Ruohuo directly controls the fire dragon to fly far away. Damn you brat, wait for me. Wanshi immediately squirmed with its huge body and chased Ruohuo. There are rocks ahead, Lord Wan Snake. Orochimaru stood calmly on Wan Snake's head, smiling and reminding him to avoid it. Snort. The two of them set off together. The destination is Canopy Bridge, which is not that far away. The scheduled journey takes 20 hours, but with the flying capabilities of 10,000 snakes and fire, water, dragon bombs, it will obviously be shortened a lot. This is the way of traveling, it is inevitable that it will be a bit arrogant. But arrogance is arrogance. It often takes enough courage to stop this pair on the road. The flaming dragon flying in the sky. A super large python that chases the fire dragon and occasionally tries to attack it. Ruohuo controls the direction of the fire dragon. The fire dragon controls the direction of the snakes. Wanshi's huge body was destroyed all the way. Not to mention blocking the Awagakure ninjas they met on the road, even escaping had to look at the faces of Ruohuo and Wanshi. What's going on with that big snake? Why is it so big? Did Orochimaru of Konoha launch an attack with the Konoha ninjas? No. Look at the sky. Orochimaru's target is not us, but that Uchiha, Konoha's Uchiha. The messenger team will report to 3rd generation Tsuchikage-sama immediately. Oops. The direction they are going in is wrong. They seem to be heading, their target is a Wagakure village. Are you crazy? Do they want to surprise a Wagakure like this? 3rd generation Tsuchikage has an order. Support will be here soon, try to intercept them. There is a giant dragon flying in the sky and a giant snake chasing below. This scene is not easy to see. After being shocked, the Iwagakure ninjas finally discovered the purpose of the master and apprentice. If they continue in this direction, the end point will be a Iwagakure village. The Iwagakure ninjas were furious and their morale was high for a while. Orochimaru is too arrogant, he really plans to rush to their home like this. I really think that Iwagakure, are weak and can be bullied. As a result, more and more Iwagakure, filled with anger, tried to intercept the pair of masters and disciples. At first, Ruohuo was basically too lazy to take care of it. All you need to do is control Wanshi and let Wanshi crush him directly. Wanshi is too lazy to care. This brat dares to provoke Master Wanshi, he must be swallowed. Orochimaru is too lazy to care. Looking at the figure in the sky, Orochimaru felt a little hopeful. Ruohuo-jun. You and Master Wanshi seem to get along very well, right? However, with the increasing number of Iwagakure ninjas, including those who are chasing from behind, and those who are blocked in front. If Wa basically advances in a straight line, his intention is too obvious. The Iwagakure ninjas directly set up a temporary defensive front, and together they raised a huge wall tens of meters high. But how can a mere city wall stop Ruohuo? I saw that Ruohuo first increased the amount of chakra of the fire dragon under his feet, soared up to several hundred meters, and crossed the Iwagakure blockade. At the same time, he did not forget to leave a fire-style Tanchi. Fire rained down from the sky, but the Iwagakure ninjas could only rage furiously and spread their anger on Orochimaru, who was riding 10,000 snakes. Frankly speaking, if one snake ends his channeling at this time, he will forcefully return to Lonely Cave. Then Iwagakure may have to capture a Sannin as a prisoner. Fortunately, although Wanshi is evil, he still has professional ethics. He escaped to the ground, forcibly dug a hole, and then he got so arrogant that he directly drilled out from above the city wall, opened his bloody mouth and swallowed a few unlucky ones to replenish his strength, and finally continued to chase Ruohuo. Looking at the flaming dragon in the sky. And that rascally snake. In addition to scolding, the Yenin people also became more convinced. They are going to launch an attack on Iwagakure village. And after breaking through the temporarily formed defense line, the obstacles that blocked the way forward for the master and apprentice were basically useless. One can fly and the other can escape. How to stop them? The Iwagakure ninjas saw this and were so angry that their teeth itched. The key is that the two masters and apprentices were moving extremely fast, and they were not interested in fighting at all. They were so energetic that they just wanted to rush forward. No chance to fight at all. Too arrogant. So arrogant. Far away in Iwagakure village, in the 3rd Tsuchikage of the Tsuchikage building, the two-person scales Anoki made an angry statement. As a disciple of that old fellow Sarutobi Hiruzen, do you really think that Iwagakure is weak and can be bullied? That junior named Orochimaru, do you think you are Uchiha Madara? Call Han and Z over here. Today we must let this junior know what Iwagakure's power is. Master Han has already set off for Kanabi Bridge, Master 3rd generation. An Iwagakure female ninja rushed in. She is Anoki's secretary and daughter-in-law. What? What is he doing there? There. Huh? The 3rd generation suddenly realized something, flew to the map, and compared it with the route sent by the communication team. Master Han said that the destination of these two people may be Kanabi Bridge, and he went to take a look.